This podcast contains material that is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all listeners. Enjoy.
I don't want to get on the bandwagon. I'll burn that wagon down and join the band. Traveling troubadours, terrorizing street corners just to try to get some supper in our hands. Now I waited all my life to get this off my chest, scream bloody murder until someone understands that it ain't about the money, the drugs, or the women. I make this noise just because I can. And we'll all join in to that original sin. So let's get rowdy and reckless. Let's get rowdy and reckless. Let's get rowdy and reckless. Just for the hell of it. Just for the hell of it.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Old Man Strength, a podcast of the Tailgate Society, and brought to you by Deadeye Barbecue Sauce, the best damn barbecue sauce in the known universe. Check them out on the web at deadeyebbq.com. You can visit us at thetailgatesociety.com. And please go ahead and check out Old Man Strength on Twitter at Chris. Remind me again what the handle is.
You're throwing me for a loop. I should have it right in front of me. At strength_old, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's like 7,000 Twitter handles for every idea that you could already have. So, no, that's
right. What do you know? Somebody write that down.
Oh, perfect. Oh, fantastic. Well, anyway, I am, if you are not familiar with our podcast by now, I am Tim Johnson, and I am joined, as always, by Mr. Chris Shipley. Chris, how are you doing?
Doing okay. Not too bad. Thanksgiving time. A lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot to be thankful for, which is a good reminder in this year of 20 cluster F20. There's so many things going on this year that it's a good time to be reminded of everything that is good going on. Man, I really shouldn't complain. One of the nice things about all of everything that's going on is I don't have to be around people, which is frankly kind of nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know some people that this social distancing and not leaving your house seems right up their wheelhouse. Like they've been practicing for this for years.
Oh yeah, man. When I was younger, I was a very gregarious, people person. You probably could have thought that I would have been a salesman. I like talking to everyone, and now it's like, man, if I didn't have a kid, I would be tempted to go homestead somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, go buy an acre and build a cabin and learn how to bushcraft or something like that. Some days that just seems simpler, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I could use some simple times. Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot less stress.
Well, that type of mentality, I feel like, has been hanging on for me a little bit, in that there's just been so much kind of looming, whether it be in the distance or just right over my head kind of every day when I wake up, that there's so many things that we kind of have to think about, and think about all of the choices that we're going to make, or the choices that we've even made over the past week. And man, that can weigh pretty heavy at times.
Yeah, I have a problem that I seem to worry myself into a fit every once in a while. This last weekend I had just a little bit of I don't get depressed, but I get melancholy, I think, is probably the best word for it sometimes, because wish I was a little better off here, or I wish that things were, not that I'm in any way, stretch your imagination, unhappy with my life, but I sit there and think, I wish that things were a little better here, or and it really kind of, and a lot of it is job related, because I've had a little bit of, and we've talked about some upheaval and some, just not sure what the future holds or whatever else. And then I get a buddy of mine who lives down the street, and he texts me this picture of this car that he just bought, which is a green Challenger, beautiful car. The guy's, I don't know, probably in his mid 60s. And I was like, it's the last thing I need to see today is you showing me this Challenger that you're going to buy when I'm over here working my ass off and wondering whether or not, the job that I have is going to be the same 2 weeks from now. Not that you're not happy for your friend that he's successful and has an amazing looking car and so on. But, at that time, then you just start to go, geez, look at all the decisions I made throughout things, and not regrets, but you just wonder sometimes if a decision here or a decision there would make a different outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a challenge to I would challenge anyone to look at their life and not question what if. I mean, for instance, let's say, what if you would have watched Goonies when you should have? Like, how much better your life would be just having watched Goonies or The Princess Bride. I think.
Okay. Have you been talking to my wife? Because I got off at noon today and we did some stuff, and at about 3:30, she's like, "Let's watch Goonies," and I was like, and Caitlin's like, "Yeah, let's watch Goonies. I love that movie." What, you've seen that movie? Oh yeah, that's a good one. Well, luckily I couldn't find it anywhere to watch it. Well, first it was going to cost $4, and that's my, I'm paying enough for streaming services, not paying $4 to watch them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So then we found that Princess Bride was on Disney Plus.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we're going to talk about regrets and mistakes, the mistake that I've now wasted an hour and 40 minutes on that debacle of a movie this afternoon.
Oh my goodness.
It was so bad. It was so bad. First of all, how does she not know that's not her dead husband within 5 effing minutes? Like, come on.
Well, it's not her husband. But yeah, no, of course. But there's a willing suspension of disbelief. Like, this is a story being told by Columbo to the kid from Wonder Years.
Right. Well, that's my first problem. Actually, let's reverse. My first problem with that entire movie is that kid's got a William the Refrigerator parody poster in his room, and he's wearing a Walter Payton jersey. You need to pick your loyalties there, kid, because Walter gave up a touchdown for that fat bastard in the Super Bowl, and I'm still pissed off about it, and that was 30 years ago. So that's my first problem with that movie.
Oh, that's fantastic. I would love the idea of you meeting Fred Savage at like a Comic-Con, and you'd be like, first of all, a huge fan. I love the Wonder Years. I love everything you've done. But now I have to nitpick something.
Right. You hit a soft spot for me, dude.
Oh man,
I'm not kidding you. That movie was brutal. It was brutal. And then at some point, Stacy goes, she's making dinner, and all the grocery shopping we've done for Thanksgiving, we forgot something for tonight's dinner. And I was like, well, I'll go get it. She's like, okay, well, you can stop the movie. And I go, oh, thank God. And she goes, oh no, we'll finish it when you get back.
Oh man, there's just okay. Well, you know what? To each their own.
I watched it. I mean,
you are a Nickelback and Creed fan, so I already know that your taste can be dismissed offhand, without exception. So, okay, well, so this is a terrible segue into what I think we want to talk about tonight, because that is something that you regret. Is watching that movie, and I don't want to focus maybe on regret, but I think tonight what we need to talk about is maybe some of those choices that we have made along the way that maybe we think that we could look back on and approach differently. I know certainly for me, I probably spend way too much time. It usually hits me about 3 a.m. I've had some weird dream about something that has a lot of verisimilitude to my life story, and it oh man, it just makes me wish I had an ability to change a choice. And I don't know if that's regret. Is that regret? I don't know. How do you define regret, Chris?
I don't think that's regret. I think that's realizing that you made a mistake, and if you could go back and correct it, you would.
Uh-huh.
I think that's part of growing, and I think that's part of trying to do better in your decisions going forward.
Sure.
I regret that. I can't ever say that I regret something because I don't necessarily know that if I would have made a different decision, things would have been better.
Right. It's the whole kind of butterfly effect.
But I do think that there's instances where I wish that I could have handled things in a different way, looking back now, knowing that was a better way to handle it. I think there's a difference there.
Yeah, no, and I don't know. I mean, this is probably just a semantic thing. I had a friend that used to say all the time, I don't regret anything because every decision that I made me who I am today. And, on the one hand, I think I understand what they were getting at, but on the other hand, I was kind of like, well, that's bullshit. Are you perfectly happy with who you are today? Because first of all, not that anyone shouldn't have self-confidence or be proud of who they are, but I also think everyone should probably always be striving towards self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And part of learning from your mistakes is acknowledging your mistakes and correcting your behavior. And I think it's okay to kind of wish you would have exhibited different behavior at the time. And so, I mean, if that is how you define regret, then I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that I live my life with regrets. I think sometimes when people say I want to live my life with no regrets, it's that they don't want to live a life where they say, I wish I would have, done something braver or bolder or whatever. I wish I would have spent more time with my kids, or I wish I would have whatever. But I think it's okay to look back, not dwell on, but look back at what you've done. I think there's something healthy to looking back at a situation and acknowledging what you could have or should have done better, because that's going to help inform a better decision for you in the future. Right?
Yeah. What happens is that the decision that you made before, the next time you make a decision that may involve that particular person or that particular instance, you are now blinded and compounded by that prior decision. And it can either snowball in a certain way, or it can get worse, or it can get better, right? I think you have to come back and step back and look at every decision independently and try not to focus on that. That's really hard to do, though, when you know deep in your heart that the decisions that you made have affected somebody that you love and care about in a certain way. That doesn't take away the personal responsibility that person has.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately there's a personal decision there that they have to make. And I'm speaking specifically of being a father.
Mm-hmm.
Those decisions mold your kids.
Yeah, I think that's probably where most of those things where I say that I feel regret, and look back at decisions I made and how they set me on the path that I'm on today. You know what? Right, wrong, or indifferent, I made the decisions that was fine. That affected me. But I think the big things that weigh on me aren't the things that affected me. It's how they affect my kid, or how they affected my family, or my other relationships. And I think those are the things that probably I spend more time dwelling on is, all of my if-onlys really are how I impacted others? What was the imprint that I left on their lives, or still to this day I'm continuing to leave on their lives, or maybe even choices that I made in the past that haven't come to roost, but I know will eventually be a problem, right? So I think that's a whole different kind of man. We need to come up with a different word than regret, but it's a word that says I acknowledge the mistakes that I have made and the impact that they have had. Is there a word for that? There's probably like some German or Yiddish word. It always seems like when there's a word for this stuff, it's either German or Yiddish. So it's like one of those things where there's a word for that feeling. I don't know. Do you
Remorse, I think, is probably closer to that.
remorse? Yeah, maybe.
Because I have a lot of that, and what remorse comes with, I think, is sadness.
Sure.
Because you can't go back and change it.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
We have talked a lot about our kids and our family and silly things that we've done and things like that. But there are times where I sit there sometimes and are really remorseful of some of the decisions that I made in regards to my oldest. And
Sure.
that's because sometimes I give myself a break and go, listen, I've never been at the time that happened, I was never, I didn't know what it took to be a 25-year-old father with a little baby.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that when I was 40, what it was like to be a father at 40 when that kid was 15.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. I've never been in that position. I'm never going to be in that position next week on Friday, which I think is when this podcast comes out. I turned 50 years old. I'll never be 50 and know what it's like to raise or to help a 25-year-old. I just don't.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You've
So-
mentioned that in the past that your first kid is a victim of your inexperience for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not like oh well, once I have a couple of kids under my belt, I got this figured out. It's like no, every single step you make along the way, and I think that's one thing. I've said before that the whole idea of the biggest lie I believed growing up is that someday I would feel like an adult. It's because every step along the way, it's still new and you're still learning and you still feel confused. There might be so many things that throughout your career, you felt scared at first, but once it became old hat and you figured out how to do this and you've kind of mastered it and now you can tell everyone else and whatever. But no matter how old you get, your relationship with your oldest child is the first time you've ever encountered that. And
Exactly.
and the entire pace of the world and the entire culture changes and you're kind of along for the ride, and for better or for worse, your kid is dealing with your inability to kind of change with that, or your ability to change, but you just don't know, you're new. You're still finding your legs. In a lot of ways, you're constantly learning how to walk in a new path.
I would address, and I would take certain decisions if they were presented to me now in regards to my oldest,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what I know now, and a lot of people will say that, I would make completely different decisions because I realize now what I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And we can put all the cards on the table. I've said several times that I'm an open book when you and I talk on this podcast. And I will probably, throughout the course of the night, say it incorrectly, and it's not any reflection of who he is. But Tyler, who is my oldest, was born and I named her Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
He's transgender. There was a lot of transition that I didn't understand and frankly didn't see. So as we talk about it tonight, I will probably slip up and say her.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably slip up and say she.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably slip up and say Taylor. Not because I don't love him
Mm-hmm.
and I don't support who he is and who he
Mm-hmm.
was born as. It's because as and I almost did it there, as his dad,
Mm-hmm.
since the time I held her as a baby, that's always been Taylor to me.
Yeah.
And when we're together and I call him Taylor, he doesn't get mad at me. He understands. Dad, it's fine. I know what you mean. Just when you're introducing me to people or whatever, just will you please make an effort to call me Tyler? So I do. So if you want to talk about remorse, raising him in the way that I did, not realizing what decisions I made that may have affected how he developed and he was comfortable with who he was, is really hard for me. And there are times that I think I'm a complete failure. And it doesn't matter who tells me different. It doesn't matter how many times I've been told that that's not the case. I know deep in my heart that if I would have understood better who he was and what he needed, he wouldn't have so much trouble today.
Sure. Yeah, and and Chris, that's something that you've kind of caught yourself on a couple other times here, and I very much appreciate your sincerity, and again, man, I've said this a billion times that you're such an open book. But I don't know, as much as myself, I say whatever my child feels is their truth in the future. You kind of, the reality is you get kind of used to, you prepare yourself for certain things, right? And I think maybe that's something that we need to get better about just in general as a society, is that you prepare yourself to be a girl dad or a boy dad or whatever. And your mind gets, into all this. And it wasn't a thing when Tyler was born, but gender reveal parties and all of these things. And like we put very much an emphasis on these things. And I don't know how old Tyler was when he kind of revealed his identity to you, but I'm guessing you spent years and years understanding him, as what you thought when he was born, and not necessarily recognizing what his identity is as he identifies today. And so that's a lot to kind of unwork in your brain.
Yeah.
Like that's learned behavior. And I'm not saying that to give you an excuse, but just the reality is that's what you knew, that's what you were set up as. And so I applaud you for recognizing that, but I also I recognize that has to be I get, I guess, why you get caught up and you sometimes say the wrong things. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to you for that.
What I'm going to say is not an excuse, but it's the truth. I was never a father of a kid who was transgender.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what that was. And I didn't know, was it a phase? Was it all the other things that happened? The earliest that I can remember was probably middle school.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe at that time, middle school for Tyler was 7th and 8th. They would go to grade school K through 6. And I remember he see, that's how hard it is. That's honestly,
sure.
that's because now I'm remembering at a time when it was Taylor.
Yep.
We'd come home from school and there was a girl at school, and Tyler was always very, as a kid, was very loving, right? Would always want to give hugs and kisses and would always want to cling to me or cling to her mom or be with grandpa, or, I can't remember, we were at the store one time, we were shopping and he was in the stroller and this other lady walked up and had a baby in the stroller, and Taylor was trying to get out of the stroller to try to go over there and give the kid a hug, and the kid was terrified. And I was like, like, holy smokes, kid, you can't hug everybody. Yeah. So, but she would write this girl's name on her notebook all the time because she so badly wanted to be friends with this girl and so badly wanted to be friends with this girl that it kind of freaked the girl out.
Sure.
And, at that time, middle school girls they're freaking brutal. Like, they are brutal individuals.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So, I'm planning on being Amish before my daughter has to go through any of that stuff.
Right. So, I didn't think anything of it other than the fact that she just wanted a friend. She was friendly. Mm-hmm. Looking back now, I think that was probably tendencies of the fact that she was attracted to that.
Sure.
And of course, the kids teased her mercifully, mm-hmm. that she, of course, then would label her, oh, well, you're gay. You must be bi because you like girls. And of course, Taylor would fight it and come home crying because people were calling her names, mm-hmm. to the point where then she would start to take on that persona of that's what she was.
Sure.
And then I worried, okay, well, are you acting like that because that's just what everybody says you are? Like, you need,
Is it like a self-fulfilling prophecy type of thing,
okay,
right?
So just like, because people are calling you that doesn't mean that's who you are. And
sure.
and if I'm going to be honest, part of that was I didn't want her to be, obviously,
sure.
At that time, selfishly, because I had, this is going to sound really terrible, but this is a good example of who I am now as opposed to then. What a terrible, terrible father I was, thinking I don't want her to be that because I have all these plans and dreams for her.
Sure.
Right.
Well, and I think some of that too is just because you can look at that and recognize that it is a more challenging life, right? And
yes.
you want your life for your child to be easy. And yes, it is very selfish and it is narrow-minded and it is not fair to think that way.
Right. All those things.
But I can absolutely also understand that you just want things to be easy for your child.
Yes.
And sometimes you get so clouded by that desire for things to be easy for your child that you miss out on what the right thing is.
Yes.
Because you think wanting what's easiest for your child is the right thing, that you get lost in what the right thing is.
And even then, I've never ever in my life been anti-gay or anti gay marriage, any of those things. I've never been that way. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that I didn't want her to be that because I didn't believe in it or I didn't think that it was possible.
Yeah, it wasn't a moral failing.
Right. It was because I just didn't want her to have that struggle and that hard life. And I was really blinded by the fact that I thought she was just confused. Mm-hmm. Because shortly after that, her mother and I got divorced, and who knows, she's acting out because of that. And she was getting picked on at school and made fun of and all those things. And in my mind, I thought she's just gravitating to that because there's kids there that are like that are sympathetic for her. That's really what I thought. But and it was hard for me to. And she would come home and she'd be like, Dad, I get picked on all the time and they make fun of me because I'm gay and so on and so on. And I would go, no, maybe because she wouldn't she would struggle with like taking a shower or wearing the same clothes every time, and didn't want to take care of herself. And I would say, Taylor, maybe I'd say, if there's two bisexual girls going to that school and one of them dresses in clean clothes every day and washes their hair and takes care of themselves, and you're walking in there looking like you just rolled off the street like a bum, that's probably why they're making fun of you. Mm-hmm. Again, I look back now, realizing some of the mental challenges that she has. Jesus Christ, Chris, she was depressed and probably sad of all the things that were running through her body, that she didn't know who she was. And she had all these confused feelings. And that's what depression is. They don't want to take a shower. They don't want to dress right. And here I am hammering her for it. What a terrible father I was.
I mean, that's something that I've learned over my life, that I had to, whether it be for my family members or my loved ones or my friends, and really for myself, is to just understand and accept and acknowledge that the mental often manifests itself in the physical, right? So the challenge you're going through emotionally or with your mental health, which I actually separate emotional health from mental health, because they're related, but they're distinct things in my mind, right? Like, you can be doing all the right things for your emotional health, and you can be in a good place emotionally and in a bad place mentally. And I think that's something that people struggle with understanding. And I'm certain that when Tyler was younger, he probably struggled with that too, was understanding what his own emotions were. And, just because he might be happy on this day doesn't mean he's in a good place mentally. Right. Or vice versa. He might actually have a really good mental health day, but be just in a funk. And they're two different things. And then, so that alone is a challenge. And then now you add into, well, again, man, I mean, he's a teenager. There's hormones running wild. There's so many physical things going on. The physical aspect is yet a whole other thing to get wrapped into all of that. I don't fault you, Chris, for not understanding that. And I, if anything, I appreciate that you have now been able to take the lens and look at that and realize, oh shit, I was missing the forest for the trees on this one.
Right. And that's a good example of that remorse that we were talking about. Mm-hmm. I know I can't go back and change it. I know that those decisions that I made have molded him into having some of the troubles that he's had now.
Sure.
I know that. Again, that doesn't, and we can talk, we'll get to this later, but that doesn't alleviate from some of the decisions that he's made since then.
Sure.
And our personal responsibility that he has to take care of, that I as his dad shouldn't have to bail him out of all the time. But, and the kid's parents were divorced. They were going to divorce. That's hard enough on a kid. Then realizing who you are and what you are, and that your body isn't what you thought you should be born with, and all of these things. I mean, I can't imagine what that would go through. And I eventually did. And about that time, about a year later, is when I met Stacy, and Stacy and I got married, and we became a family, and that was very helpful. Mm-hmm. Because he finally had a stable mom in his life. Mm-hmm. His mom was, I don't know. She loves them in their own way, in her own way, but she also is just, she's not motherly.
Sure.
She's just not.
Sure.
I mean, we'd be married, and she would be more concerned about wanting, she'd be going to the grocery store, and she'd stop and pick up the phone and call the neighbor and see if the neighbor needed anything. But she'd be damned if she asked me if there was anything she could do for me. That kind of you know what I mean? Or her kids. Yep. You know what I mean? She was more worried about everybody else's outside opinion of, she was more busy playing mom than being mom. Mm-hmm. I that's the truth. And when I met Stacy, the girls finally got a mother, and that also added to my anxiety when in regards to Tyler, because Stacy is an absolutely 100% amazing woman and mother and wife. She's also, her family is also very stout Catholic.
Sure.
And that worried me of how they would accept Tyler.
Yep.
Because I didn't want them to not like her or him.
And,
you know what I mean? And
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I can imagine it. Well, I can't imagine, but like from Tyler's perspective, right? So Tyler has now spent most of his life feeling probably, I think the best word, and this is not a fault for you or his mom or his stepmom or his classmates, but it's betrayal, right? So first of all, he feels betrayal because he doesn't feel at home in his own body.
Yep.
And now he doesn't feel at home in how the school system and his classmates have to view him. He doesn't feel at home and uncomfortable in the life that you guys have kind of just assumed and just kind of planned that he's going to be in, right? And so he's already kind of feeling betrayed by all of that. And now he has to deal with, the parental separation, and now, new family and new kind of awkwardness. And I would imagine that he has to be feeling through every kind of step of this, a tremendous amount of insecurity, right? And I don't say.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I don't say this to say, man, Chris, you should have done X, Y, and Z. I say this to be like, holy shit, I don't know how. Like, again, it doesn't matter if this is your first kid or your 15th kid. This is a challenging situation, but like for your first, like you don't even know, you can't even begin to know what to do to give him the confidence or the feeling of support in a way that maybe he needs, right?
The only thing that I ever could find that would give myself comfort was to look him in the face and tell him, it doesn't matter to me. I always will love you. Mm-hmm. None of that ever mattered to me. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes as a dad and as a man, you just want to fix something, right? And there's just some things you can't fix. Caitlin gets mad at me sometimes because she'll call me and she'll, be upset about something or whatever. And I'll be like, well, you need to do this. And then you do this. And then you do that. And she's like, Dad, you got it. I'm not asking you to fix it.
You just made it worse, Chris. Yeah.
Right.
No,
and all I want to do is partially because I'm like, I've got the answer for you if you just fucking listen to me. Then I wouldn't have to listen to you bitch for 15 minutes on the phone.
Well, that's why we have this podcast.
Right. She would just listen.
Yeah. Caitlin, just shut up and listen to your dad. As always.
Oh my God. She's going to be back with her mom in a little bit. I might have her come on. You can tell her that.
No,
she was super pissed when she found out I was going to talk about Tyler tonight and not her. And I was like, well, listen, you got plenty of playtime here, so you got plenty of airtime.
I was going to say, I've already thanked her for being like our third loyal listener.
Right?
She's gonna hate me now that I told her to shut up and listen to you. But
but we got Tyler a lot of counseling, and that did help in the medicine. But then we enter into that teenage years where she knew everything, he knew everything. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And now we're on top of that, and so that, and then we moved. His senior year, we moved to Norwalk, away from his friends and whatever. So that was a challenge, to go here to his senior year and try to get through high school. And I think he was
so wait,
out.
that was like right before his senior year. So like he did 3 years of high school, 1 year at Norwalk, or
So he did 3 years at Lincoln in Des Moines.
Okay.
So Stacy and I married in 2011.
Okay.
So I think Tyler Tyler was 13 when Stacy and I had met. So he was 15 when we got married. So I think he just finished his freshman year.
So, but So he also, but these are also some of the same. I mean, I know it's Des Moines school system and a little bit larger, but some of these kids he'd probably been around for most of his life, right?
Yeah.
So that's a
yeah.
a pretty big uprooting.
Yeah, that was an upheaval too. But part of that too was he was really struggling in school. He was in some special classes, and I think there again, if we want to go back and talk about remorse, there were a lot of, I think, learning disability issues that Tyler has, that were never picked up, that I didn't know enough to pick up on. Stacy certainly did, because she's a teacher.
Yeah.
But at that point, I think we were too far in, and she was getting some help and getting an IEP and things like that. But she's got to want it too. He's got to want it too. And I think a lot of that was just he just wanted to coast and just get through high school, which is not any different than probably 75% of the other teenagers or myself.
I was gonna say, for Pete's sake, he has a dad that didn't even know he was going to graduate when he graduated.
That was college, by the way. That was college. I knew I was graduating high school. That was college. And in my defense, there was a late science class, and science, as clearly 73 million people in the country believe, isn't a real fucking thing. So.
Oh God, that's brilliant. Okay, so but anyway, so to kind of like bring this into a lot of what we've been talking about, though, Chris, is that this has been a situation that I think part of one of the things I wanted to get at is that you don't have to feel remorse over things that are just things that you knew better. Like, I think of a lot of mistakes that I have made that I knew better, right? Mistakes, whether it be with, my relationship with my now ex-wife, where it's like, you know what? I do recognize that I was a jerk about X, Y, and Z, or, even just, my daughter's younger, but even I think about mistakes I've made with her where I knew better. That's one thing. It's a whole other type of remorse where you didn't know better, but you still feel remorse because now know better, and you kind of wish that you had the same intelligence to be able to approach that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference there.
You're more angry at yourself because you didn't know that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's, I think for me is what when I sit here sometimes and say, I've completely and utterly fucking failed. Mm-hmm. It's more anger that I should know better. I'm a smart guy. Why didn't I know that 10 years ago? Why didn't I see that 10 years ago? Yeah. That's, I think, is what is bothersome the most for me as a father when you talk about things like that. And I still, I listen, I've never been a father to stepkids that have special needs either. Mm-hmm. I make mistakes all the time with those boys.
Sure.
I love them like they're mine. To me, they are my sons. And I've said this before, they have a wonderful father. And when I say things like that, that's not a disparaging remark on him. But I'm their dad. I'm with them every day. And I make mistakes with them every day. But you know what? I do what my dad always did for me. My dad would yell at me, or he would get angry at me, or he would discipline me or whatever. But there wasn't a night that went by that he didn't pull me out or have me come back out to the living room and give me a hug and tell me how much he loved him and how that hurt him more than it hurt me.
Yeah.
And there would be times when I'd be like, Dad, that's fucking bullshit, because that fucking hurts. Like, like the backhand to the chest. I got a welt.
Yeah. No,
not saying that I do that to the boys, but I'm saying I'm still going to make those mistakes.
I think about that a lot because, we've talked about, as much as you've been honest about who Melvin was and who Melvin wasn't, You and I have both talked about how we are kind of always measuring ourselves against our dads, right? We're always kind of measuring, and so one of the best things that kind of ever happened uh, recently. So I've been divorced for not yet 2 years now, right? And you know that going through a divorce, whether it was, something you wanted or didn't, or, something you knew was the right thing at the time, or you didn't know, or whatever, you know that when you're going through a divorce, it leads to a lot of self doubt, right? No one ever gets married thinking they're going to get divorced. No one has kids thinking, well, I'm probably going to get divorced after this kid is born. And so there's a lot of self-doubt when you're going through that process. And the weirdest thing I think when I was going through a divorce was that I felt like, and this doesn't make any sense. It might make sense to you. You might actually kind of agree with this. But the weirdest thing when I was going through a divorce is that I felt like I was letting my parents down.
Yeah.
Because it felt like, first of all, I mean, my parents have been together for shoot, close to 50 years. But just the idea that because like when you get married and your parents, my dad was my best man at my wedding. And so it was very much this just feeling like I'm not living up to kind of what I promised I would do when I got married. And so when you're going through all of that, there's just kind of this so much self-doubt. And then you kind of look at how you're handling that with your kid, or how you're instructing your kid, and you feel like, I felt it's weird. Throughout my divorce, it was like I let my parents down, I let my daughter down. I knew, even though she initiated it, I was letting my ex-wife down, I was letting myself down, but it was really my parents and my daughter. And my parents at one point kind of, when I was going through all this stuff, they're like, Tim, you don't know how imperfect we are. You've never, like, as much as you've probably hated us for this, or you've hated us for that, or whatever, it's like, you don't know half of the stuff because we don't tell you all of our imperfections, right? So right. All of the things that you think we're imperfect for, there's probably 7 other things that we're imperfect for that we didn't even tell you about.
Yeah.
Or that you weren't even privy to. And again, I'm not that my parents are lying to me or they aren't open books or whatever, but it's some of those things where all of those moments of self-doubt that you have, you're not necessarily telling your kids that, right?
Yeah.
All of the things that you've ever done wrong, all your kids that you have a great relationship with, whether it's, Tyler or Caitlin or the boys, you don't constantly tell them every time that you felt like a shitty dad. I mean, you might apologize for them for, hey, I recognize I did this wrong, I did that wrong. But there's a billion other times where you probably felt like a shitty dad, but it wasn't really ever a conversation or acknowledged type of thing. And it was a good thing to hear from my parents that they said that they kind of, they just helped me realize that that mistakes happen when you're a parent in a way that you never kind of acknowledge to your kids. It's just different. I can't quite explain it, but I think you get it.
I get it. Yeah, because I think part of it is that you're, in your eyes, your parents are the standard that you live up to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, sure, I saw my parents argue and fight and whatever, but my parents, I think, were married 52 years. And they lost a son when he was 2 or 3. They went through a lot of heartache and a lot of travesty, a lot of arguments, a lot of financial hardships, whatever else. So yeah, when you're going through a divorce, and I went through my divorce because of what happened, and I think to myself, God damn, my parents made it 52 years and I can't make it X number of years because of this reason and that reason.
Yeah.
And then you start to think, am I getting divorced because I want to be selfish? I initiated the divorce from my wife. And I can remember, even though I wanted to be divorced because of what happened, I remember distinctly one night, the girls were gone. I don't know where my ex-wife was. I sat in a dark room in the basement for 4 hours crying my eyes out because of what I was doing to my family.
Yeah, I mean it's not an easy decision, and
even though I knew it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Like I knew I was a miserable son of a bitch, Tim. I was miserable. And I was angry all the time, and I treated my kids terribly. I wasn't a good father to them. I definitely wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good person, and I just didn't like who I was. And I'm not saying that it was my ex-wife's fault, but
it was a bad situation
it was a bad situation to be in. It was not a healthy relationship to be in.
Yep.
And I knew deep down somewhere there was a better person out there. There was a better person that I was inside. And the only way to get there was to start over.
Yeah.
And to start focusing on my kids and not me.
But that's scary as shit, Chris.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely. Listen, we had mutual friends. We have mutual friends still to this day that were our best friends. We would hang out as couples with all of our kids every weekend for years.
Yeah.
And you know what? 4 of those couples still married today.
Yeah.
And that was really hard because I was the one that was going to break up my marriage. I was the one that was going to end our marriage. And to this day, they still associate with my ex-wife more than times than not. And I'm very good friends with them. And there's not anything that will change that ever. They are my dearest friends, but some of their wives are much closer to my ex-wife than they are to my current wife. And they don't mistreat my current wife. We just don't have a lot in common anymore. And there are times where I will see where they're having a party or whatever, and my ex-wife is over there, and that hurts me a little bit.
Yeah.
But but not to the point where I'm more hurt because I haven't done a better job myself of being a better friend to ensure that I'm involved in their life.
Oh yeah, no, for
right?
sure.
It's not them, right? And I don't expect them to not be friends with my ex-wife. I can't think of a good reason why anybody would be, but
I get that. Like my old neighborhood. So we used to literally we called it the Four Corners Caucus. When I rebuilt my fence in my backyard, we put in a high top table where the four fences meet. So the four of us guys could go meet. We had a cowbell, and if two people were together, you rang the bell to make sure that the other two came out.
Yeah.
And we would always sing. And I still, I'll go ice fishing with those guys. I'll go river fishing with those. I'll still do that. And I don't know if they've gotten to know my ex-wife's boyfriend who lives in the house. I don't know what that relationship is, because they're not going to tell me, and I'm not going to, whatever. And it's fine. The guy down the road, his daughter is in school in this exact same class, not just grade, but class with my daughter. Right. And so I know that my ex-wife and Eliza's mom hang out and talk and all of these things. And then Chris and I talk, and it is weird. And it does still give you kind of a sense of we said regret, we said remorse. There's another word where it's not real doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a tinge of doubt there, right?
Yeah.
Where you
I hope they don't like them better than they like me. Yes.
Right. right?
Yeah.
And it's petty and it's stupid and it's whatever, but there's still a little bit of this that you can't help but it's very petty. It's
No, it
very
is.
but it's there and it's something that you need to acknowledge. And when we talk about the relationship you have with other people, part of that is acknowledging your kind of like your it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier with your relationship with Tyler. Part of that was this, I'm going to say petty, idea of what it was like to raise a daughter and now have a son, right? There's a pettiness to that.
Yes.
That you forget that this relationship is not this transactional relationship that's all about me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. It's
and
not
so-
always about you, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I go back to those four friends. Randy, Brian, Jeff, and Mark are some of my dearest friends.
Mhm.
They've been friends for probably 30 years. When I got sick 3 years ago, all of them showed up at the hospital. When my dad passed away 9 years ago, they were all at the funeral for me.
Mhm.
If I picked up the phone today and said, "Hey, let's play some cards this weekend," they would be over there and we would laugh and joke like we had seen each other every weekend.
Yeah.
So when I see them sometimes at somebody's house or whatever, and I wasn't able to make it or whatever, and I see pictures of them with my ex-wife and her boyfriend, am I jealous? I'm only jealous because I'm missing out on time with my friends, not because
Right.
not because they are with them
Sure.
instead of me. It's because, God damn it, I like hanging out with those guys, and I've missed yet another opportunity to see my friends.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
And I would say that I've even passed up opportunities that I should have taken with my friends. Even
Yes.
even opportunities with like they've invited me to be involved, but because I knew I would be feeling kind of this jealousy that why can't I have this more often?
Mhm.
That I shouldn't have passed it up, but you
Right.
get into your own feelings and you get into your own pettiness and you focus on all of the wrong things.
I'm going to say something that you will probably yet again on this podcast say, "Okay, this is the last fucking episode because I can't talk to you anymore." You're going to think this coming out of left field, but it's not. I fucking hate fishing. I hate fishing with a passion. Somebody should shoot me in the head before I ever want to go fishing again.
No, you know what?
That being said,
I love
every
fishing.
year-
You're an idiot, but that's neither here nor there.
every year we would go on a fishing trip with my friends.
Yeah.
Just the guys. And we would go
Right.
somewhere in Iowa, go for 4 days, fish, drink, whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't went for like 6 years,
Uh-huh.
6 or 7 years, just because I'm either busy or things have fallen by the wayside, whatever.
Yep.
This last April, they invited me again.
Yeah.
Dude, so excited to go. I was ready to go. And then this fucking COVID thing hit and I was devastated
Mhm.
because we couldn't go. But I was so excited that I got invited again to go and was going to go. And there wasn't a thing that was going to stop me. I mean, I was going.
Yeah.
So those things will always come back, right?
Yep.
But when we talk about regrets or remorse, there's remorse there sometimes because, again, my fault. I don't make a better effort at certain things.
You didn't
those things
nurture
need to be-
those. You didn't nurture those relationships more,
Right.
and so now that you're missing it, you're
Yeah.
kind of recognizing that you didn't do a good enough job of nurturing that before.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
No, I absolutely I get that. Well, you know what, man? We should probably take a break. We have a ton of stuff I think we could still cover, but we've already kind of talked for quite a bit. Why don't we go ahead and take a word from our sponsor? Again, I want to give a shout out to Deadeye Barbecue Sauce. If you have not had Deadeye Barbecue Sauce, man, Chris just picked up a smoker. I think he is going to really even appreciate them that much more. I think probably one of the pieces of regret that he has is that he has not had that smoker earlier and learned the brilliance of that Deadeye barbecue sauce on some brisket or ribs.
I'm doing pork belly next week. I'm doing pork belly on my birthday.
Oh, that is absolutely a good start, man. I know, I appreciate that. So anyway, we'll take a word from our sponsor, Deadeye Barbecue Sauce, and we will be back in about 30 seconds.
Back when I started Deadeye, I knew I wanted to innovate the barbecue game. Since day one, we've offered a premium barbecue product unlike anything else on the market. Great Aunt Irene had something special tucked away on a recipe card in her cupboard, and there was no way we weren't going to do something about it. So we decided to take it one step further, introducing Deadeye Superfood Barbecue Sauce. We've got 5 new flavors: Graviola, Acerola, Pink Guava, Acai, and Dragon Fruit. They're the first of its kind, and they're packed with flavor. Find it at your local grocer today or at deadeyebbq.com.
All right, welcome back to Old Man Strength, in case you got short-term memory loss in the last 30 seconds and didn't know what you were listening to. If you have blacked out and forgotten who we are, I am Tim Johnson, joined again by Chris Shipley. When we left off, we were talking about some of the again, it's not regrets, it's maybe remorse. It's just some of the mistakes that we've made. Some of the things that we've done that we wish we had. I don't know. Is it a do-over? Are do-overs a thing? That I always think about that scene in City Slickers. Do you know what I'm talking about? Please, God damn it, Chris, tell me you've seen City Slickers.
I've seen City Slickers, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay. So
let me get you hot, Phil. Price check on aisle 9. I need a price on aisle 9.
I can't believe Bruno Kirby passed away, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think God, first of all, it probably dates me just the fact that I'm referencing City Slickers. It dates me even more that I'm referencing City Slickers fondly. And third, because I'm identifying with the guy who is going through a midlife crisis.
Right.
And Billy Crystal says your whole life is a do-over. Like when you hit it, you hit the ball, over the neighbor's fence, you get a do-over, and your whole life is a do-over. So I get that. Like there's this weird part of me where it's not something I actively wish for. It does kind of sneak into my subconscious every now and then. I find I'm not a believer in like dreams mean things, but they are kind of like a mental house cleaning of all the shit that's been in your brain forever. And sometimes my dreams do kind of go back into the what if territory or thinking about the past. So I get that whole idea of, man, if I had a do-over on life, I mean, like even before we started, Chris, I had said, if life were different, I would homestead in the middle of Idaho, off the grid, that type of thing. So I get the mentality of, man, if only, right? And that's a tempting and dangerous area to play in, right?
Yeah, I think so. As we've talked tonight, and we've talked about regret or remorse or do-overs or what have you, I think I might backtrack a little bit and say there might be some things that, yeah, if I could go back and change, I would, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certain decisions, yes. Would I change the fact that I got married to my first wife? No. Mm-hmm. Because then I wouldn't have Taylor and Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
Do I wish that I would have made the decision to get out of that unhealthy relationship sooner? Yes, mm-hmm. I do. And if I could go back and change that, I would.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do I wish that I would have recognized Tyler's experiences and what she needed beforehand, yes, I wish I could go back and change that, right? Not because I think that it would make her not gay. I think because then she would be a better adult now and being able to handle those things than she is right now.
So I think that's a fair point. And you struggle with the gender pronouns and all of those things, because it's still so. How long ago was it that Tyler told you, Dad, this is how I identify and this is what I would like you? Because it does seem like for all of the challenges you've had with him that he is understanding of your struggles, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like for all of the kind of the bullshit that he's put you through, at the same time he also, there's a certain amount where he realizes that you are doing the best you can for who you are, right? So how long has that been?
I think he's appreciative of that. He was 13 when he told me that he was not just didn't like girl. I mean, that he was either bisexual. At the time, he felt that he was bisexual. And then has trying to moved into understanding that he's transgender and he's really a male.
So when do you think, because
full on decided I'm really a male, I would say probably in the last 4 years.
Okay.
Is when he has really come to understanding who he is, and he wasn't just a girl who was bisexual.
Because
there's a difference.
Gender and sexuality can be fluid. There's a large spectrum, but there is, I think, for better or for worse, there are kind of some discrete units sometimes where we look at these things. And I think particularly for you to kind of understand how to approach your own son, I think, you've kind of had to learn those things. And it seems like it's still, frankly, it's still an ongoing thing, right?
Yeah, it is. And I will, and as I've said before, I will catch myself sometimes. I make a very conscious effort to make sure that I identify him when I'm talking to other people as who he is, which is male and Tyler and so on. There are times where I will write posts on Facebook with memories or whatever, and I'll tag a memory and it's a super cute picture of her all dressed up for school or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I remember this day because I did her hair and so on. And I think, can I post this? Like, how do I address this? No, that's who she was at the time. And he's okay with that.
I was going to say,
he's totally okay with that. For all the things that he's put me through, and we will probably talk a little bit about them, because there are some things that I want to make sure I get across in this podcast, in that I take some responsibility for who he is and the decisions that he's made. But he is also a grown adult with his own decisions, and he needs to own those. And I certainly, as his dad, am not going to excuse those.
Sure.
But for those purposes, he has been very understanding of my just lack of sometimes just being dad and going, you're still my baby girl and my firstborn, and that I brought home in a dress, right? Like,
right.
He gets that, what I mean?
And there's, and I'm not calling your dad homophobic or
no.
Transphobic or anything like that, but there's still a lot of Melvin in you that probably comes out too, right? That
Melvin was probably more progressive than I was.
Okay.
I mean, he was very tolerant of it, but in that scheme of things, an older generation may not fully understand it. My mom came over Her birthday was 2 weeks ago, and she came over and we FaceTimed Tyler and Caitlin, because Tyler at the time was COVID positive, and was in his house, and Caitlin was still up at school.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my mom, I said, we're going to call Tyler, and she goes, I just can't call him that. I know that's who he is, but he'll always be Tay to me. Mom, it's fine. You're his grandmother. He doesn't care. Right? Like,
that's by the way, that's a whole separate thing that I have learned, is the relationship, having a kid and seeing my mom with my kid, watch out, Chris, because you are very soon. I don't want to say very soon. I'm not like spoiling anything, but I'm just saying it's not going to be that far before you're a grandpa. And the difference between a relationship with a parent and their child and a parent and a grandparent and their grandchild is like night and day difference.
Oh, listen.
But it goes both ways. Like when you are a grandkid and loved, it doesn't matter if your grandma doesn't understand you.
Right.
You know your grandma loves you, and you love her. You love her for all her faults and all of her confusion. You know, my grandma thought terrorists were going to take over Grafton, Iowa. That fucking shit was not ever going to happen. But there's like 240 people in the town. There's no terrorists that are targeting Grafton, Iowa. But I loved her so much because she did what she cared about, what she's passionate about. And because I knew that no matter if she understood, I didn't get a tattoo until after my grandma passed. And I can only imagine what my grandma would have done if she would have seen my tattoo, which is a really mild thing by today's standards. But at the time, but I am sure that Tyler and his relationship with your mom is just a different thing.
Two stories. So we'll tell two stories. So we'll lighten it up a little bit. I picked up Taylor from my mom and dad's house one time. They watched her all the time. And I don't know, Taylor was jacking around, wasn't doing, I don't know. And I kind of got on her. I think she was maybe 6 or 7. And I kind of yelled at her. And my dad goes, "Hey, you shouldn't raise your voice to that little girl." What? He goes, "You shouldn't raise your voice to your kids."
You're like, you raise your voice.
Are
to
you
me
fucking
now,
serious right now? I said, you fucking yelled at me every day of my life. What are you talking about? And he goes, and I look back and see that was wrong now. And I'm like,
did you ever apologize?
What? Okay, well, I'm a little dumbfounded right now, I said. And then one time I go over to pick up Taylor and she's hiding behind the couch. And I was like, we got to go. I just want to stay here with grandma. She loves me and I want to stay here for the rest of my life. And I was like, listen, this whole fucking thing's a facade. It's not the real thing. You don't want to live with her. Trust me, you don't want to live with her. Get your ass in the car.
So my mom was, before she retired, was an early childhood educator. And so my sister, who is a teacher at a private school in Ankeny, she homeschooled and did a co-op and did a lot of other things with her kids. But her youngest son, or her youngest child, who was her only son, she was kind of focused on some other things, some other kids, and some teaching. And so when it came to, I don't remember if this was preschool or kindergarten, but she was teaching my mom was teaching my nephew, and at one point he came over for school and he said, he said, "Can you not be teacher grandma today? Can you just be grandma?" And that like crystallized to me the difference between kids see their parents as even if they're the nicest parent in the world, they still see them as like an authority figure, and they don't see their grandparent as an authority figure necessarily. And so,
because
yeah,
there's no rules.
no, that's true. There are no rules. So yeah, okay. So, by the way, we actually now have a very special guest on our podcast that I don't think she herself knew was going to be a very special guest on this podcast. But I would like to welcome to Old Man Strength someone who is neither old nor a man. Caitlin, how are you doing this evening?
I am fantastic. I just actually finished my junior semester, a semester at Iowa State. So I'm home for break, ready to annoy my dad.
So, wait, back up. Are you? It's Thanksgiving. Are you already done?
Yeah. So Iowa State actually went back a week early, and then we took no breaks during the semester and had a shortened semester, so that we could be done by Thanksgiving. And so I won't go back for second semester till January 25th.
I can see the pride and happiness on your dad's face right now. He looks very happy that you are.
You should probably look up the definition of pride and happiness. It's more annoyance and Jesus.
So Caitlin, what we've been talking about tonight, I don't know if your dad told you what we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh, I did not.
Okay. Well, so, do I get to play spoiler then, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So what we've been talking about how we are dads, how we are husbands, how we have relationships with other people, but ultimately how the choices we have made have affected other people. And we've vacillated. Do we call it regret? Do we call it remorse? But the reality is we recognize that we have made mistakes.
Yes.
What I know about your dad, though, is he has never made a mistake, right?
Well, Tim, I can't say that that's true.
Okay, we appreciate you joining the podcast now, Caitlin. So you may go back up and do what your mother needs you to do.
Wait. Can I talk about an experience that has actually scarred me, if I might say?
Serious? Scarred.
Oh, man,
I'm not running this show right now, so
I was going to say, Chris, as much as I want to respect you, I really just want to hear this. So
I mean, luckily we only got about 4 or 5 listeners anyway, so we're all right.
Yeah, well, I know, and one of them is on the podcast right now.
Right.
So.
That's right.
Our demographic is going down at the moment.
So, Tim, you have young children.
Yes.
Right? Yes. When I was a young child, I was probably in, kindergarten, first grade. And my dad had been asking me to clean my room. Well, but I loved all the toys that he had gotten me so much, I never wanted to get rid of any. I was very appreciative as a child.
Chris, I'm actually already on your side for this part of the story. Just let you know.
Thank you very much. I already know what story this is, and I'm already putting an asterisk at the end of it.
So,
I mean, go on, Caitlin.
So, I think my dad was working from home that day, and I came home from school. Sticking out of the garbage can on the curb was my Cheetah Girls guitar. And you bet your butt that I pulled out that Cheetah Girls guitar out of the trash can, along with the trash bag full of my toys he threw away back in there. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I don't like to throw away things because of that experience. It was just so traumatizing.
Because I wanted to clean your room. You're now a hoarder? Is that your story?
You threw away my toys without my permission.
Okay, so you ever heard that saying, there's her version and then the truth? This is the truth. We were trying to move, and I did not want to move all her stuff. So she had some princess outfits that were 3 sizes too small for her, and I threw them in the garbage. My only mistake that day was that I didn't put the garbage to the curb before she got home, and it was still near the front porch.
No,
She
it
would
was
have
already
never
on the
known
curb. The guitar
that-
was sticking out of it. That was your mistake. So if we're talking about mistakes that he has made, throwing away my toys is debatable.
Oh my God.
But leaving the guitar sticking out of the trash can was his biggest mistake
Oh my goodness.
that day.
I stand by my decision.
I was
That
gonna
is
say
not
no,
one of the decisions I'm going back and changing.
no, Chris. I'm gonna defend you. Caitlin, you've listened to our podcast. You know that your dad is brutally honest. I would even dare say sometimes unfair to himself. He's very much an open book, and I very much appreciate his sincerity. Chris, you made the right decision that day.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. The amount of shit that she had in that closet, it was ridiculous. And FYI, she's 21 years old. I can guarantee you right now, the last time she went fishing was in June. And if I went to her car right now, those fishing poles are still in her car.
Actually, the last time I went fishing was in August.
Are they still in your car?
Yeah, but you were wrong.
Yeah, I love that the inflection in her voice was about to say "but" and
Right.
explain away while they're still there.
Right.
Listen, I
'cause, you
also
know,
have 2
she's-
prom dresses in the back of my trunk because you never know when the occasion arises.
Wow.
Same with fishing.
So, Chris, I've like this entire night, I've been wanting to kind of reinforce with you and encourage with you that while I appreciate how open and honest you are, and while you felt challenged by some of the parenting decisions you have made, that ultimately you are a good, like your kids love you and they know that you love them, and so that means that you are a good parent, and I'm very proud of you for that. But after hearing that story, I'm starting to question your parenting abilities if she still keeps fishing rods and prom dresses in her car.
Yeah, I've been out
Well,
of high school for 3 years.
Listen. Remember when I said earlier about Tyler, how, certain things that I've done have affected his life, but there's certain things that are just his fault because of the decisions he makes. I mean, this is the one that thinks that the new Karate Kid is better than the original. So for that, right alone, calls her judgment into suspect.
I was 10 years old when I made that
I
assumption.
don't, looking it up right now, I do
No,
not
no.
think that you were 10 years.
Well, no, you know.
Karate came out when I was in 5th grade.
Oh man, I don't know. I hate to alienate our fan. Singular.
She doesn't have anything else to do for the next few years. So, what year were you born?
1999.
Oh, what?
Yeah, you're right.
What
you were
a
10.
dad! What a dad!
You're right. I was told.
Don't
I was
ask me
told-
what. Don't ask me when my kid was born. I'm not going to answer.
I was told there'd be no math.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
She was 10.
That's
You
what you
know-
told your last semester advisor, right?
No, that was science. Again, I was told that there'd be no E equals MC squared. That's what I was told.
Also math. That is an equation, so therefore it is math.
Okay, and again, we thank Caitlin for coming on the podcast now, as this has completely gone off the rails.
No, I
Welcome
think
to our life.
I was gonna say I think the idea of mistakes as a theme for the podcast. This is kind of perfect.
Thank you, Caitlin.
But yes, thank you very much, Caitlin. We will see you later.
Bye.
Join in next time when I let Joshua come down here and talk shit about me. Let's let my kids come on here and tell everybody how freaking stupid I am.
Yeah, hey, I'm just lucky that my kid is always in bed when we record this thing, so I don't know what to do with that. Man, that's fantastic. But that, Chris, that really is kind of I think a testament to one of the things I think I want to get out of tonight So we've talked about, we asked our Twitter followers about mistakes that they've made and how it's impacted others. I think one thing that we need to do, I know I need to do for myself, and I know that you need to do for yourself, is understand that for all of the mistakes that we have made and all of the things that we wish we could have changed about the choices we have made with our family, is that our family is probably the first to forgive us for all of those things. They're the first to not even remember all of those things, and the things that we lose sleep over, the things that we dwell on, and the things that we spend way too much time, and wake up at 2 a.m. and worry about how I interacted with my daughter in X, Y, and Z way. That's already out of her mind and moved on to something else, and she just knows that she loves dad. And that's not easy to do. I'm not going to pretend like I can understand how you're doing that with, you've been very blunt and honest about some of the struggles that Tyler has had, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a certain amount where our family and our loved ones and the people in our lives are better able to let us they just don't judge us for the things. They don't put the weight on us that we put on ourselves, right?
Right. Well, because I think I don't want to say chauvinistic, but as old school as I am,
it's a male thing. Yeah, for sure.
It's a male thing, and I need to take care of everything in this family. It's ingrained in me that that's my responsibility.
Between the I'm the dad and I'm the leader of the household, and like you said, just the male tendency of I want to fix everything, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's not even just about hey, I'm the leader of the household. If Stacy told you her hairbrush was broken or whatever, you'd try to fix that. Like, it's those silly things that have nothing to do with you leading the household or you. It's just this inherent nature to just make things better.
Well, I mean, she listens to this. Don't say things like that because she's still waiting on the dryer to get fixed.
Well, no. Trust me, I get that. There is an entire.
But in theory, that sounds wonderful.
There's there's an inherent thing to make things better that you want to make things better.
Right.
No,
Makes me look good.
No, trust me, I get that. We talked several weeks ago about a living room project that I'm ostensibly working on, and I still am, just very deliberately, with a lot of deliberate, slow, patient choices. So yeah, I get that. No, absolutely.
No, I totally get it, and it is our inherent way to fix it. And I'll kind of wrap it up with Tyler in discussion with Tyler when it comes to fix it is that there for a while I was in the mode of always trying to then make up for those mistakes that I made as he got older and made mistakes like not sticking with the job and moving from couch to couch to friend. He would get into situations where I would be like, come home, you can come home. I'm never going to not let you have a place to stay and we'll take care of things. And then I would help him get back on his feet. I would help him find a job here. I would do this and I would do that. And then boom, 2 or 3 months later, he was ready to bail again. Mm-hmm. And it would break my heart. And then I would not talk to him for a while. And then he would do his own thing. And then he'd get into the part where he was failing again and I would have to bring him home. Mm-hmm. And part of that is me trying to fix it all the time and me trying to fix it. And I would think to myself, I can't let him fail. Like, what am I going to do if I wake up some morning and he's dead in the street because nobody else took care of him? I'd never be able to live myself with that. But I'm not helping him by bailing him out all the time.
It's one of those things that, Chris, I'm not looking forward to as my daughter gets older, that I have no other choice but then to look at someone like you and realize that As much as I can say, hey, you know what? My daughter can jump off the couch all she wants. She's going to learn. She's going to hurt herself. But I also don't want to drive her to the emergency room with a broken arm. Like there's this balance between like letting them learn how to fail and giving them
Right.
the freedom to fail and protecting. And I don't know. I do not know where the line is between letting them have the freedom to fail and protecting them from failure. And I don't know what that is. I don't know.
I think I found the line this summer for me, and it was a long time coming.
Sure.
He moved back in. He moved to water. He was in a house last year, and he had a falling out with roommates. He hadn't been working. He couldn't keep a job, and he moved to Waterloo to move in with some friends in Waterloo that he had met online.
Yep.
And it was a mistake. You shouldn't move there, but you can't come home. Like, I can't let you come home.
Yeah.
So it was like a month and a half, and things had felt terrible up there. And he called me crying, begging to come home, promised that he would follow all the rules. And I said, okay, you can come home. So he came home. He was good for a good month or so. He got a job. I helped him get a job. And then COVID hit, and he lost his job.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he couldn't go anywhere. So then he ended up finding a job here in Norwalk after that. And I came home one day, and he's like, hey, I talked to my friends in Waterloo, and I'm going to move back up there. And I was like, why would you do that? You're just now getting to the point where we're getting your paperwork in order for your disability, because she's got some physical problems as well. Mm-hmm. And you're working and things are going good, and you're going to save some money, and we'll help you get it. Why do you want to throw it all away? And he's like, I want to be on my own. I want to be on my own. And I remember I left the house. I was crying. I was like, I was a total failure. I called my sister to have her talk me off the ledge, because that was one of the times I needed to talk to Melvin. Mm-hmm. Like, I needed my dad.
Yeah.
So I remember I came home, and we were going to go on vacation. It was the first vacation we were going to go on all as a family. He hadn't went on a vacation with us for 4 years, and we were going to go to Alabama and go to the beach and so on. And I said, just think about it. Just keep working. And then when we get back from vacation, just think about what you're going to do. So he did. And then he decided, like, the next weekend after we got back from vacation, he wanted to move to Waterloo. So I was like, all right, I'll drive you. But if this doesn't work, you can't come home. Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. Tim, we get up there, and I pull into the house, and I walk in the house, and it's like a punch to the face of cat piss and terrible. And I was like, I walked back out of the house. I pulled him out. I said, you can't live here. Mm-hmm. Said, you please, I'm begging you, get back in the car.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't do it. I just want to be with my friends. And I remember at that point, I flipped the switch. I dropped his shit. I got in the car, and I called Stacy, and I said, I'm not responsible for that. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not on anything that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Anybody in their right mind would not choose to live there over where he was living before.
Yeah.
He's making a choice, and he's going to have to live with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a month, and he called me, and I said, you can't come home. I said, you need to find a place to stay. I'll come and get you, because I don't want you to be in a bad environment, but I'll be damned if you're going to move in with me. You need to figure something out. Mm-hmm. And he moved in with a friend here in Des Moines, and then I helped him find this place in this counseling home. Mm-hmm. That he's entered a year program of counseling and classes on how to be a better adult, on how to finance his money, on how to just transition that a normal, like Caitlin is becoming an adult just on her own, right? Like everybody else does. Tyler can't do that. And this home is helping him. And he's been there since September. And he called me about a half an hour ago. He got off work. He's going back to his house. I'm going to go pick him up. He's going to spend the day over here for Thanksgiving. But it's like a different kid. But I had a conversation with my friend Mark, who unfortunately had his son pass away. And kind of in the same deal. He wouldn't listen and whatever. And Mark said, I remember having a conversation with Mark, and Mark said, I know what it's like to bury a kid and not help them. And I'm telling you, as harsh as this sounds, you're doing the right thing by making him make his decisions, because you're not helping him by bailing him out every time. He said, do I wish that my son was still here? Absolutely. But if I would have done that, if I would have kept bailing him out, he probably wouldn't have lived as long as he did.
Mhm.
He's like, you're, of course I feel terrible, but I'm telling you, as a parent that's going through it, you're doing the right thing by making them stand on their own 2 feet. And it's the hardest thing that you can do. And yes, do I sometimes feel like I'm making a mistake? I do, but this is the one time that I almost feel at peace with it. Does that make sense?
No, Chris, it absolutely does. This is going to sound weird, but when you moved Tyler into his housing situation that he's in now, when you moved him into this facility to help him kind of manage all of this stuff, I could get a sense of pride that you had. And I was proud of you. I was proud for you. I very much felt seriously, there was a part of me that I didn't even know how to tell you, like, hell yes, I'm so proud of you. I want to give you all a big hug right now. Like, you guys are doing the right thing, and I know it's not the easy thing, and it's not the thing that is the feel good thing, right? Like there are some things you want to do that are just going to make you feel better, and it's going to make your kid feel better. And when your kid feels good, you're going to feel good.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's very difficult to learn as a parent, is that because the joy your kid feels at anything, and the joy that gives you, I mean, that's like crack, man. That's like when your kid is happy and you feel like you facilitated happiness for your kid, that is addictive. And you want to have that feeling again. And so you chase that feeling, but your job isn't good feelings.
Right.
It's right feelings and right decisions, right? And that's scary. And it gets even to like a scarier part. Like for you, like Tyler's an adult.
Yes.
For all intents and purposes, but still needs guidance, right?
Yeah.
And so now you've taken over this role that's just like it's still parental, but it's less like guardianship and more mentorship in the way of parenting. You know what I mean? Like they're both parental abilities, but one's guardianship, one's now like mentorship. And so now what you've had to do is like mentorship and help Tyler get into those things. And I have to say that I mean, I know you're not through the weeds on all this stuff, and I know Tyler still has his own kind of challenges to work with, but man, the pride that you had when you realized this is a good thing for him and he is going to get on a good path, and that you are doing the right thing. There was a part of me that was like heartbroken for you, because I know that this was not like an easy and comfortable and quick decision to come through, but there was a lot of me that was really excited for you, because I knew that you were helping him be a better person, and I was so proud of you, and I was so proud of him, and it was humbling to me, frankly, because you handled it with more grace and dignity than I could imagine, and that was amazing.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot to me. I just remember thinking, oh my God, I think this might be it. Like the things that fell into place for this. He had been living in this apartment with his friend when we were trying to get it, set up, and there's several homes in the Des Moines area. And when the counselor, and we got everything going, and he's like, and the counselor was like, well, I can place him in this house, which is blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my God, that's like 15 minutes walk from where he works. Like it could have been anywhere in Des Moines, and then, it could have been on the south side. Well, now he'd have to take a bus, but it was 15-minute walking distance from his house.
So it was all just serendipitous.
From his work, right? Like it just all kind of fell into place, and
perfect.
And these people, will help him, and he just sounds different on the phone. And I told my wife, I said, I get into this place where I feel I start to get excited for him, and I start to get excited that, oh, this is finally going to be it. And then sometimes I get my heart broken, but I just feel like this time is not that case, right? And and a lot of times I will have conversations, and we'll talk about, like, he had missed a bunch of work money or a bunch of time for work and whatever. And he was like, well, I'm out for 3 weeks. And I was like, well, where are you out for 3 weeks? And they're like, well, that's what they told me. And I was like, well, that doesn't even make any sense. And I could feel my dad mode going in and go, well, you need to call them, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. And instead I was like, okay, well, I'll let you take care of it. That's one of the hardest things, right? Yeah. Is when you go, okay, well, I need to let go and just let you figure it out. And it figured out. And she went back to work today, and she's still got a place to live, and she's got groceries, and she figured it out.
So that's one thing that, like, as we talk about all this stuff, right? I don't know if Tyler knows that we're talking about him. But I know that your family knows that we've brought this up, and I know that, well, first of all, just from what I can tell from your family, Caitlin and Stacy, they know that you're doing the right things. And I can even tell, when you shared that Tyler was moving to this facility, that I know that everyone knows that your heart is in the right place. I know, first of all, I know you because I just know you're a good person. And I just love you as a person, but I know that, like, your heart is in the right place. And sometimes, we talk about regrets, and sometimes part of that is not that we made bad choices, but sometimes our best intentions still led into the wrong consequences, right? But I know that I'm confident that the way that you're leading now is from experience and knowledge, and that I'm confident that Tyler understands that. I'm confident, certainly, that Stacy and Caitlin understand all of this. And it's not an easy decision to make, but man, I think maybe that's the lesson to get all of this, is that sometimes the lesson that you get out of this isn't regret or remorse, right? We started this off talking about regret and remorse. And I think the thing is, that it's neither about regret nor remorse. It's more about, okay, well, now there's a new challenge. I'm better equipped for the new challenge. And maybe that's the way I need to be approaching these things with my daughter, right? So I have a lot of regret and remorse for the way that her mother and I split up, but maybe I have a new way that I can approach the challenges that she's going to face, or that she's facing right now with, school being in school, not in school, in school, not in school, like all of those things. It's that I'm learning new ways to navigate these things, that maybe I didn't handle the past situation right, but now there's a new challenge that's unique that I hadn't even thought of, and I have a better lens to approach that. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. That's a perfect way to sum everything up. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Chris, once again, man, I appreciate your transparency and your honesty. I don't know that I know anyone who is more open and honest. You even let your daughter come on here and talk shit about you. And as much as I've been in her corner, tonight I learned that maybe she's wrong about things, and you're actually right.
Right? Right? Well,
maybe
time.
My big regret, my big mistake is that I've given Caitlin too much credit.
Too much credit? I know, right? Well, anybody that burns their eyeball from some microwave popcorn, it doesn't have all their faculties. We'll tell that story next time. Maybe we'll bring on we'll bring on Josh and Jordan. We'll let them entertain the audience for a while.
Oh, God.
Josh, every time I get on here, goes, "Can I at least come down and say hi?"
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, well, that's good. I'm going to be doing something. So I'm going to be working one of my other podcasts, Bitter Units. Quick plug for another Tailgate Society podcast. We're going to be doing something with another podcast for a holiday charity live stream, and we're going to be doing it, I think, via Twitch. And Chris, you and I talked about what the F is Twitch, and I still don't know, but apparently that's what we're going to do. So apparently I'm going to learn Twitch, and I'm going to teach it to you, and so you can take it to those boys and be like, see, Dad knows what Twitch is too, so
Dad knows
suck
what
it.
Twitch is. Well, that sounds fun. I'm going to join the group from Culture Check on Sunday.
Yes.
And
talk about this, please.
Politics. Yeah, we're going to talk politics and some civil rights stuff. I told him, I said, well, I'm the elder statesman, so we can talk about, some stuff like politics and how that's changed over the years. And they're like, yeah, we could totally talk about that and the civil rights. And I was like, I'm not sure you know how old I am, but that was a little ahead of my time. Now I know that stuff, but that was like, I'm not 70.
I still just like the idea of an old white man talking to these youths,
right,
about all this.
My perspective will be wonderful, but I'm excited.
If you guys have not, listened to Culture Check, please check out Culture Check. I had the very distinct pleasure of doing kind of a one-off podcast with Arnold Woods about Prince, because I happen to know a guy who used to work for Prince and record with Prince, and that was fantastic. And that guy blows me away and knows way more than I do about anything pop culture whatsoever. And Emily is just smart and knowledgeable. Again, makes me feel very dumb on how much she knows. It's certainly, there's things that, just because, being younger, she doesn't get, but she's still sharper about anything else and has a very much smarter take than I have ever had. I love Culture Check. Chris, you've also been on a few other podcasts. You've been on Matinee Baseball, right?
Matinee Baseball. We did Mr. Baseball. They're doing fall type football movies now, so that's always one to check out. Especially that one. Sports and Corks is really good. That's a good
Emily's. One. It's fantastic. So, yeah, absolutely.
Up and Things now is back with Iowa football. So
yeah. If you're into that thing,
which we're not. Although I'm secretly hoping that Nebraska beats them, man. That would be an epic meltdown. I would so be all over that.
Oh God, yeah, I know this is gonna air after this, but or is it? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. It would be a thing, and I'm not sad about that either. But no, I mean, those guys have some fantastic stuff going on. We have a lot of great content. Alex Kukin always does the Sigh by the Numbers, where he breaks down the stats of an Iowa State game, and
gives me heart palpitations every time.
Well, because it reminds us of like the Kreiner and Walden years. And and we remember,
I don't need any reminder of that. It's still seared into my brain.
Right? Yeah. Have I ever told you Tracy Henderson? Do you remember Tracy Henderson? Oh, Tracy Henderson was a receiver in the Walden years that played for the Giants. He used to ref my co-rec softball league here in St. Louis Park. Yeah. So, Well, speaking
of old guys like that, George Condon's dad, George Condon Sr., played for Walden.
Oh, sure.
And I've gotten to know him pretty well on Twitter. I've always thought it would be interesting to bring him on and see if he would come on and talk about the old Walden years. And
speaking of things old man strength, I think that would be great. Absolutely.
I'll reach out to him. We'll see. We'll see if we can't tease that for a little bit. All right.
yeah, if any of you guys have any other ideas for topics that we can tackle, we certainly appreciate it. Otherwise, Chris, do you have anything else you want to add?
Not at all. I think we're done. It'll be my birthday, I think, when this drops. So everybody take a listen, shout a happy birthday, subscribe for me.
Yeah. Man, I don't. What is the fifth-genarian? I don't even know.
I don't know. My nutritionist told me the other day that he went to a sermon one time, and the priest or the minister was talking about how the average male lives to be 70. So if you break that down into days, I'm just now getting to Friday, which seems kind of morbid for a Sunday preaching, but then my response was, well, I really like to party it up on the weekends, so I guess my best years are coming.
Oh, Chris. Well, so we have at least one more episode of Old Men Straight. So please give us your thoughts, your feedback. We're very grateful for all of our listeners. Again, please check out Deadeye Barbecue Sauce, the best damn barbecue sauce in the known universe at deadeyebbq.com. The Tailgate Society at thetailgatesociety.com. Visit us on Twitter at strength_old. Is that what?
Yeah, that's right.
You can just search Old Man Strength or Chris Shipley or the very handsome Tim Johnson. Any of those things I think will probably bring this up. But we appreciate it. Thank you for letting us talk about our mistakes. And we will talk to you guys next time.
I don't want to get on the bandwagon. I'll burn that wagon down and join the band. Traveling troubadours, terrorizing street corners just to try to get some supper in our hands. Now I waited all my life to get this off my chest, scream bloody murder until someone understands that it ain't about the money, the drugs, or the women. I make this noise just because I can. And we'll all join in to that original sin.